Negotiating with trade union leaders is not as straightforward as you might think. Your job as a CEO is to successfully manage your company. One of the key roles of a trade union leader is to leave the bargaining table with a wage increase for his members. And there are two major mistakes that CEOs make while negotiating. According to industrial relations consultant Courtney McNish, mistake number one is telling a trade union that your company cannot afford a wage increase.
If you look at the Petrotrin issue that started off the year with possible strike action back then.
Yes.
That was, it didn't happen again because it was, they settled on around the table. How would you describe that situation with Petrotrin going before the trade union and saying, we don't have any money at this stage. The company has already presented its financials. They're in the financial red right now. They were not able to offer anything, but at the end, the trade union walked out with an increase.
Every collective bargaining cycle for any company where there is indeed a recognized majority union, there must be some consideration and some expectation of the possible increases in wages. Petrotrin is doing badly now, but it's cyclical. 2-3 years probably down the road, the whole situation could change. Your ability to pay and or the level of your profitability in itself is not a justification for not giving or awarding reasonable competitive wage increases. Now, if to award such an increase would fundamentally harm the company and threatens its sustainability or its existence, that is another matter. There's an obligation on Petrotrin management to dig deep and find all the ways possible to ensure that its operations becomes even more efficient so that they can afford the wage increase that it has agreed to. If a supplier comes to you and say, look, next year, my raw material supplies to you will increase. You have two options. Only two options. Either you look for a cheaper supplier, or you say, okay, fine, and you find ways within your operations to absorb that through efficiencies and productivity, or maybe there's even a third. You could pass on the cost to your consumer and your customer.
There's also the issue that Petrotrin workers are some of the most highly paid in the industry as well.
Well, Petrotrin operates in an industry where the workers generally are better paid than the other sectors in the country. It is the energy sector. That is not a surprise. I hear comments being made, oh, a cleaner gets $10,000. Oh, fine, yes, but maybe that cleaner is working at 30, 40 years. And certainly, it is not the normal rate for a cleaner nationally. Petrotrin needs to ask itself, do I need $10,000 cleaners?
When it comes to negotiating and when employees come to you for your assistance,
Yes.
What are some of the major mistakes that employers make around the table, around the negotiating table with trade unions right now?
There are two classic ones. There is a sense for most employers that if I simply say or an expressive view that this particular cost or this benefit that you're requesting is unreasonable, that the union would accept it. I say the union is not obligated to accept it. As a matter of fact, I would support any position if the union says, yes, but you're operating in this industry, and this is normal in this industry. So therefore, I will have a reasonable expectation, as a trade union representing its members, that what is applicable in the industry should be applicable to me. Now, I am not saying that at each and every single company in a particular industry should pay the same benefits. But what I am saying, it is not an unreasonable expectation. And the second issue is sometimes I think there's a failure to understand that the union is indeed playing to its constituents. The trade union is a political organization. They cannot walk away from the table without anything that seems that is not a win, because the trade union leader might look back and there's no ship behind him. Do not come and say you have nothing to offer me, because I will still look outside and see you driving your big car.
What are some of the major mistakes that are made in the public sector while negotiating, and you see that they go to around the bargaining table to negotiate, and they're negotiating for a period that has long gone? You're looking at 3-4 years.
Well, you're very right about that, and that is really a condition, in my view, more unique to the state sector than it is to the private sector. The government, as the shareholder in the state sector, will have considerations far beyond the private sector. If I give company A or state enterprise A approval to settle at A, how will that impact the other sectors?
Do you think the officials in the public sector have what it takes to sit around a table and negotiate with trade union leaders like Ansel Rotary?
I believe that the experience is there in terms of maybe the years of service. I feel many of them are still stuck in a business model mindset that follows a traditional line. The ability to think out of the box and move differently, even apply a different interpretation to the requirements of the Act, could help a lot of state sector companies to hurdle some of the difficulties. If you're referring to what happened in the Petrotrin matter, which I consider to be an absurdity, and which in itself exposed probably a hole in our legislation that probably would need to be addressed sometime in the future, it was certainly possible, in my view, to actually not enter into the negotiations for the current cycle. And the options would have been available to the union to take the company to court. And I am certainly convinced there would have been a proper defense that the company could have mounted. Because it is absurd to even think that a current cycle could be settled and registered in the court, which brings the process to an end, when the expired period is before the very court for settlement.
And yet the trade union managed to force management before the table.
I think management walked into a trap, a very cleverly set trap.
Shouldn't they have known better?
That's
or
a difficult.
Or is it that the trade union leaders are just smarter than the top CEOs in this country when it comes to
Well, that's a very relative question. What I can tell you, all the trade union leaders and trade union officials I have dealt with are extremely intelligent. They know their craft.
When we come back, we'll tell you the story of 11-year-old Amy Lee, who already has her own business. Money Matters will be right back.